Hey team, welcome back to the show. Today we're getting into part two of building the bikini physique with Coach Andrea, and Natalie's kind of here for like participation as well. Natalie and I are both here for participation. Um, but last week we talked about basically training program design, strategy, what it takes to get there, priority muscle groups. So definitely go back and listen to that episode if you haven't already. Basically, the bikini physique is about symmetry from the top to the bottom. We want plenty of glutes, delts, lats, small waist. Good posing is also important. So today we're going to dig into nutrition, phases, and what if I don't want to compete. So Andrea, from a nutrition standpoint, what phases would you say are usually needed to build this physique over time?
Pretty much just like with anybody else that is looking to progress their physique, we're going to go through probably multiple series of building and fat loss. There may be other phases that are required in there that are a little bit more person dependent, like a health phase, especially like post contest health phase. Um, but for the most part, it is going to be going into a fat loss phase, getting lean enough to be able to see some muscle definition and give us a long runway to build muscle, and and then an extended time in a build phase focus on growing all of the muscles that we talked about last week.
Yeah, really not any different than any other goal physique. It's just our progression towards your goal physique. It is just we may need to get leaner eventually in the pursuit of getting on stage versus like a lifestyle goal. Um, Anything else you would add to that, Natalie? I feel like that's pretty simple. When would you say somebody, Andrea, somebody needs to spend more time in a building phase rather than dieting?
If they're already relatively lean and need quite a bit more muscle, which I would say is going to be most women that are in this position thinking about a bikini competition.
I really think of like Janae, who, by the way, has made insane progress. The like her Google
Yeah.
growth you shared the other day is crazy. But like she came in, she was already very, very lean. Of course, we talked about her before, like her fit model competition and how well that went. She's planning to compete again, right?
Yeah, she's thinking about bikini this time.
I was gonna say it looks like you guys are planning on that, and she's crushed it. That was crazy how much progress she's made. But she was already so lean, and it was like what, like 2.5 years, something along that, I believe, to get there. And like you guys spent so much of that time focusing on building, like very, very little time dieting that entire time.
Yeah, pretty much fat loss phases have just been really quick. Like I would like to feel a little bit more comfortable going into the summer or this event, and it's been spaced out enough that we can use them that way, and
Hmm.
still make overall really good progress, but really like 8 weeks at a time just to get a little bit leaner. And that also gives us more time that we can spend building with her still feeling good and not adding too much body fat.
For sure. And again, if you're coming into coaching and like your goal physique is something like Andrea or even like the clients you've seen compete, same with like Patricia, dude, you guys spent so long focusing on building. Like for anyone coming on board chasing a physique like that, like it is going to be a significant amount of time focusing on building. Cool. Um, what if it's someone coming on board, or what, rather, why would you think so many women struggle to kind of commit to the building phase when that's what would initially improve their physique the most?
A lot of time, whenever someone's focused on, I want to compete, they're looking at stage lean competition photos because that's what everyone is sharing. And
Mhm.
that's the look that ultimately you're going for. And so a lot of people are just seeing, I need to be a lot leaner in order to have that physique. And also, so many of us are scared to add any body fat, and it's uncomfortable going through a build phase because your stomach is more full of food. You're not your leanest. You might not feel your absolute most comfortable in a swimsuit or in your clothes for a while. But whenever you're doing this for sport, it is something that you need to periodize in a way that makes sense for that goal versus it's summer, so I need to cut sort of thing.
Sure. Okay. Okay. How would you guys define like How do we define a successful building phase? What are the biggest characteristics of that? That's a question I get quite often. Like, how do we know if this phase went well?
You are getting quite a bit stronger in the gym because that's typically your biggest indicator of you're building muscle successfully. You should see your measurements going up. So glute measurement is going up, but shape is holding. And I would focus on that more so than a specific waist measurement or, like a lot of times in more of a lifestyle body recomposition type of situation, we're focused on progression in the gym, but we're also really trying to maintain a pretty tight number within the waist measurements. Like we don't need that to really be going up all that much. I think in a build phase for bikini where we're really trying to push to grow as much muscle as possible, they're probably both going to go up realistically. Your glutes and your
Yeah.
waist. Like we don't need the waist outpacing the glutes, but if you're looking at the pictures and you're still resembling a bikini shape, just softer, and your lifts are going up and your measurements around your glutes are going up, that's a really good indicator that we're doing what needs to be done in order to grow that muscle.
So you didn't do like a 2 year recomp to get where you're at right now?
No, no, not at all. My waist
If you
went
want
up
to,
quite a bit.
and that's like if you suck at training, you don't have a whole lot of muscle yet, yeah, you can recomp for a while. But if you're past that beginner stage, you want to maximize tissue growth, like a true building phase where we're not just trying to recomp the entire time, is just going to be so much more productive. But yeah, anything else to add there, Natalie?
No, I think Andrea touched on this already, but I guess I'll draw attention to like if this is your goal, you don't need to be leaning out for every summer.
Yeah.
Like I know that you were able to kind of align that with Janae, like, but again, like a quick 8 week cleanup kind of thing, just so
Hmm.
you guys can keep building. Like if it works out, awesome.
And spaced at least a year apart. That was the
Right. Like
key with
if
her.
that can be worked out, like incredible, awesome. I love that for you. Like I I don't think like it's an earn your stripes. You just have to like live in this, body that's not leaner kind of thing. But we have to get out of that mindset of like every trip, event, and summer that comes up. I just, or I will add to that too. We need to stay mindful of that you are chasing a very specific goal. So every single week, your check-in doesn't need to say, I feel fluffy. We know. We know. Like you're not supposed to be your leanest right now.
Those are both very good points. Feeling like you need to get leaner for every event, every trip, I see for so many people being like one of the biggest obstacles.
Yes.
I don't run into it nearly as much as I used to, but I remember in the past working with clients who would be like, if I was like, no, we're not gonna diet, you could kind of see they were like faltering with a plan and just like not following through as well. I'm just like not feeling motivated for the plan anymore. I don't feel as good in my body composition and just like not able to like adhere to that long term because it's like we're so ingrained with this. Like every time we go on a trip or an event, we need to diet back down, and it's like, man, we're kind of just perpetuating that same cycle. Like the thing preventing you from seeing the
Mhm.
longer term and physique improvements that would allow you to just feel good in your physique. Now, no matter what, like I don't think any of us feel as good in our physique when we're fatter versus when we're leaner. Like Andrea, you probably feel the most confident in like a sports bra right now versus where you
Yeah,
were
of
6 months
course.
ago. Probably right, but you also know it's not forever, and it's like
Right.
I don't know. I just think the longer you like just getting used to that, like it's not like you got fat either, right? You weren't obese, like you're still like very lean and fit. Uh, but I think it's like time working through all those phases, and like the more muscle you have, the more comfortable you are in that body because it is like still a better body composition as a whole.
I
Yeah,
will say,
something I've talked with a lot of clients about in build phases and like seeing that same number on the scale again that they had been at previously is I've pretty much been a very similar upper number and a very similar lower number multiple times, but every single time I hit that upper number, I feel better and more comfortable and more confident in it because the composition is different each time. So it's
Sure.
not just that every time you see the scale going up, you're going to have that same discomfort that you did initially.
It's a good take.
I do handle building phases different for each client, as I know you guys do too, because every body is different. But I can think of a client example right now, my client Nicole, who is doing awesome in her build, and the scale has gone up like quite a bit, like at a quicker pace, but her proportions are consistent. Like we can actually see, like first of all, she did super well in her fat loss phase prior. So we were starting from a really lean spot. So anything that we've put on has been noticeable and visible. Like we can actually see the tissue growth. And she's been growing like very proportionally, and like body composition is holding and is still very good. And so like that would be an example, like, and she's also a little bit more advanced, and she's also more advanced and mature in her mindset, in that like I don't think she's ever, I've worked with her now for like a couple years. I don't think she's ever once said to me like I feel fluffy. She's like, this is great. Like I love building. I'm like, yeah, me too. Life is really good. But she kind of just embraces the phase that she's in, and it's it's been really cool to like see her mindset through that, because like I said, like the scale, has been going up a little bit quicker than maybe someone else, like another lifestyle client that I would want, but like all of these boxes are checked. Like performance is really good. Biofeedback is really good. We see the tissue growth, like it's growing in the right place. So it just goes to show you that like it's going to look different for every body. And when you're committed to a longer term build, like you are probably going to see some of these things a little bit more than that, like every summer we're leaning out. And we're really only ever building for like 4 or 5 months.
I don't think you ever really get that far in a build, nor do you like get okay with all these things if you do only build for like 4 to 5 months.
Right.
I've never, like my clients who I've had just do the shorter building phases, they're never the ones who build a lot of muscle. It's that person where it's like, dude, we spent like 12 plus out of the last 14, 15 months building, where we really start to see very considerable tissue changes there.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay, so let's talk about what if I don't want to compete and just make this a little bit more relevant to lifestyle clients. So if someone loves the bikini physique but never wants to step on stage, how would you say their approach should differ?
The approach is going to be very similar because realistically, if they want to build that same shape, they're going to have to kind of go through the same steps, but they just won't have to get to the extremes on either end of that range. So they probably don't need to build to the extent that someone who is going to step on stage needs to. They also don't need to, and probably shouldn't, diet to the extent that someone that's going to step on stage needs to. You don't need to get quite as soft, and you don't need to get quite as lean. You can kind of stay within the 80% mid range.
Yeah, I think as long as you don't want that same physique, because I do think there is sometimes a misconception of like, hey, I like, okay, here's my goal physique. I want this person's physique, but let's do it like the lifestyle way, right? Whereas like, I don't have to diet as hard, but I like still get there, right? Or like, I don't go through the building phases. We do like recon phases instead, but I still get there because it's like the lifestyle approach to this. And it's like, well, that's not really how it works. Like, we still are going to have to emulate the same practices they took to get there. Um, Anything that you would add to all that, Natalie, before we continue?
If
But I would
it's a
agree.
lifestyle client who's giving us a goal physique and it's literally a stage photo, then there has to be a conversation
That's
about,
exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
yes. And I think at that point it could, obviously we're going to have that conversation like, hey, this is a stage photo. Like this is
Or
not,
if
we're
it's
not
that
going
person's off-season photo as well, though. I mean, like, even
to,
then, it's
well,
like,
but
okay, how did they build this muscle? Like maybe you don't have to
I
diet as
was going to
far,
say
but
it would be helpful to like for us to kind of counter with like, okay, let's pull up this person's Instagram profile. Let's look at what their off season looks like in terms of like body fat percentage, kind of thing. So it's like, okay, like we can kind of like chase like a similar shape, but the extremes aren't going to be there.
I would also add though, whenever that's the case, it's almost always a pro. And even even in the off season, even though they are adding body fat and they're softer, they don't look like any of us are going to look in their off season. You have to earn that body
Hmm.
composition in the off season. For one, they don't have to add as much muscle tissue. Like they're just making little refinements. And then for the other, like they have so much muscle already that adding more body fat doesn't look the same. Like let's say they add 12 pounds of body fat. That's going to look like so much less on them than it does on me because I don't have as much muscle tissue. And so I don't have as much muscle pushing out against that skin to still give me that shape that that pro does. So it's still so apples to oranges.
I know I like always whenever I see my posing coach, like I actually saw her in Pittsburgh the other weekend and I was like, "Hey," like I always ask her like, "Hey, are you competing this year?" And her, like, "What are your plans?" And her answer is always like, "Ah, maybe." Because she's always like just
Yeah.
like 12 weeks away from competing. Like, and she has the ability to stay there. So like at any point her coach can pretty much just like pull the trigger and be like, "Oh, okay, let's
Yeah.
do prep." And that is not most people.
Yeah. She doesn't have to plan it a year out like most of
Exactly.
us.
Or like years out, like, "Oh, I'm going to build
Yeah.
for 2 years and bring a better package." It's like
Right.
we're doing small tweaks at this point. And like, again, she can stay, to your point, she can stay very lean.
So, what parts of bikini prep or bodybuilding culture as a whole do y'all think are useful for lifestyle physique development? I don't know if this necessarily is a lot different than what we just discussed. Anything else you would add there?
Well, I do because we haven't touched on like obviously the build phases, but we haven't touched on like the way that they are bringing their consistency and intensity in the gym, but then also have such good structure with everything else in their life. And
Hmm.
if you are lifestyle, you may not need to be as extreme as that person, but a lot of that you need to take and adapt and apply to your own lifestyle. Like we're meal prepping, we're taking our food places. We're not just like throwing caution to the wind at a restaurant because it looks good. Like there's still a lot of structure
Hmm.
regardless of the phase that you're in. It just is dialed up to a 10 on prep and dialed back down a little bit in an off season.
But I would add though that adding intention, attention, and urgency to your building phase. Like, not to make any lifestyle client feel like manic or paranoid about like their build when they're not dieting. Like, it is not necessarily like the same urgency that we all feel in fat loss, like where the stakes are just a little bit higher. But I think it surprises people how seriously they should be taking their build. Like, just, we've talked through this on previous podcasts, but just because calories are higher doesn't mean that we're like hoarding them until the end of the night for that sweet treat, or like we're not stashing all of that extra food around our training. Like, because that's the whole point of a build, right? It's not just like for you to live the good life. It's for you to fuel performance better and recover from it better.
Yeah, so many people don't get far in a building phase because they kind of just approach it as a period where we have more dietary flexibility and like sleep is shitty, training is fueled worse. Like training that was still like, hey, we're consistently missing training sessions throughout the week, or we're not applying training feedback with or like the intensity that isn't there. And that is a good recipe for us to just gain body fat and not build any muscle.
Too
That's
many
like,
meals out because like I'm not dieting.
yeah, yeah. And that's another easy way for us to just like see the scale go up so quickly that again, we do have to kind of cut the building phase short. So yeah, we have talked about that a lot as of late because it is with our demographic, a big rate limiter for getting the physique is, hey, our building phase has to be more dialed in. We have to have more structure with like consistency to our fueling. If it's like 1 to 2 sessions every week suck because either we're underslept, we're dehydrated, we skipped our pre-workout meal, and we're talking about this like every week. It's like, man, we're just not gonna get very far like this. Like we need those consistently quality sessions. On the other end, like I talked about this on the other side with clients as well. Like hey, we're not always gonna get our best sleep. We're not always gonna like things aren't always gonna be ideal and we're not soft. We can still like push ourselves hard and have a quality session. But yes, very, very important. There was another point I was gonna make there and I forgot. Um, anything else before we continue from either? All right, what parts of all of this would you say the average woman who doesn't want to compete should not emulate?
Mhm. I mean, getting stage lean is
Yeah.
not going to be necessary. Um, Also, a lot of pros, which again is what people are looking at online, have training that you definitely shouldn't emulate because like we said, they have enough muscle. I was just listening to Phoebe Hagen on a podcast and she said, I don't need more size, I just need more density. It's like, okay, well, what does that even
What does that mean,
mean?
Phoebe?
Yeah, and so like her training is going to look so different than mine where I do need a ton more size. So if you see pros doing weird exercises or like being hyper specific with how they're doing their lateral raises or like they've got the tens unit patch things on their muscles when they're training, like we don't need that. We just need to go in and train really hard with mostly compound movements, and push hard enough because that's what they did initially to get the muscle they have. You have to look back to the same stage that you're in now and emulate that part of it, not what they're doing now as IFBB pros for the last 5, 10 years who now like don't need that extra muscle size. They need like a little corner of their glute med to grow. Like that's not you, so you probably shouldn't do what they're doing.
Or like I'm doing bikini, so I just need to train glutes and like I don't need an upper body session. And it's like actually probably you still do. You probably still need tissue everywhere.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's just do some rapid fire. It's okay if we're repeating points here, but biggest mistakes women make when kind of chasing this look. As a whole, what would you say? Y'all say, everybody each give me one. What's the biggest mistake you see women make who are trying to build the bikini physique? First thing that comes to mind.
Ineffective training movements.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Dieting too frequently.
Love it. Okay. We covered training mistake and nutrition mistake as well. Okay. Nice. We're going to be my next two questions. Super rapid. Mindset mistake. I would say it really ties into what we discussed around building, dieting for every single event, or just not spending enough time building as a whole. Trying to recomp your way into like a super muscular physique.
Comparing yourself to a pro.
Oh
Also
yeah, that's a
that.
good one.
Cool.
Yeah.
Which I would also say is why people tend to spin their wheels for years. Well, man, we were fucking efficient with that. All right, let's discuss what we need to do next. So, if a woman listening to this wants to achieve this look, how should she figure out what her next best step is? Basically, how does she know if she needs to diet or build first?
I heard someone say if you're asking that, you need to diet. And I
Really?
actually,
I don't
yeah, and
know.
I chuckled because like if you're on the fence where like should I build or should I cut? Like you should probably cut.
Yeah, you
Like
probably have a
so-
little too much body fat.
right, like so again we always talk about like no you don't need to get like stage lean right out the gates or anything of the sort, but like making sure that you are in a lean enough place to start a productive build where you have a very long runway. Where
Yeah,
we're just not
I,
gonna
Yeah.
have to pull back in 3 months. Like, whoops, body fat's too high now.
I would agree. We talked about like a Janae example, which again I think is more of the outlier. From time to time, there will be a client where it's like, dude, you need to stop trying to diet. You're already so lean. Like, we're just pretty, which it wasn't Janae at all. But again, I know we can only get a handful of clients where it's like, we're so lean and our perception of how lean we are is like so far off from reality where we need to spend like a very long time eating more and building. But I would generally agree, yes. Go ahead, Andrea.
Yeah, or even that maybe they're not too lean technically, but they've spent so much time trying to diet that they're starting out already with high diet fatigue and can't stick to anything. They just kind of suck at dieting. If somebody already sucks at dieting, putting them immediately into a calorie deficit is just adding a layer of difficulty that they probably aren't ready for yet. And so maybe like a bit of a recomp phase or, yeah, I would say recomp, not even a build phase in that kind of situation to get them to where they're more well fueled and can actually like push their training harder, learn to train and learn to diet, and then go into a fat loss phase when they have that skill and they're a little bit more mentally like fresh and ready for it.
So,
And then
cool.
I would also say, how's their health? Like that's another barrier if someone is needing to go into a fat loss phase, but thyroid isn't in a good spot, or their sex hormones are all low, their digestion is all over the place. Like that's also not a great spot to start a fat loss phase. We're probably not going to be able to improve on those things outside of like a maintenance intake.
But I think an important point here, though, is yes, all of those things. But once we take care of all of those things, we're still probably going to want to get you leaner before putting you
Yeah.
into, like, that part's got to come first.
Yeah, I would say in general, getting someone, I don't like to be too attached to body fat percentages, but like to make it general, like around 20% body fat roughly is like a good place to like for us to look at, okay, if we're below this, we're probably in a good position to just build from here. And again, that's like very much the exception rather than the rule. For most people, yeah, we're gonna need to diet down a good bit. And at the same time, those people typically aren't gonna know how to train well enough or hard enough to really build muscle. So we can kind of at the same time as we get leaner, teach them how to train. And then we kind of are in the sweet spot where, okay, now we're lean. Now we also really have like, we're picking up the training. We can now effectively train. We're lean. So like all of the like nutrient partitioning and whatnot is in a good place. And we can see the tissue that you're adding, like you mentioned with Nicole. And we have a really long way for runway for building. And again, we also know how to train well. So like this is going to be effective right from the start. So typically, yes, I would think like we're all in agreement, like get to roughly 20-ish% body fat. And then from there, we're in a good position to build for a long period of time and probably spend a good year plus focusing on building from there.
Mm.
Anything else y'all would add there? Um, Before we wrap it up, in terms of like what we need to do next. Cool. I think then the last thing would be, I mean, like we're always going through a needs analysis with clients, right? Looking at like where someone's body fat percentage is a big part of it. We touched on the training a lot already, but do making sure that we are assessing your training as well. I mean, that is a big variable with like more so the duration of the building phase, like how much muscle do we already have will basically just dictate like how far back, how far out in this timeline we are from like getting on stage if it's something that you want to do. If we're at a place where we don't have a whole lot of muscle, body fat is fairly high, we probably are looking at a good like 2 years plus of work to get there. You guys say is accurate?
Mm.
Cool.
At
But if we
least.
have a good
Yeah.
amount of muscle and we have like an exceptional amount of muscle, body fat is high, cool. We might be looking at like just dieting down, uncovering that. Maybe we need to tune up some areas, do another diet, and we're potentially compete. But it's very variable. Anyways, hopefully this was
It,
helpful. Go ahead.
it also, like, even people who are very well muscled don't always necessarily fit into a criteria.
Yeah.
You can have a lot of muscle, but that doesn't mean that your shape is bikini, for example. So, like, even if you are relatively lean or very well muscled, like, you might still really need, like, more glute or whatever. So,
More sartorius. Yeah, for sure.
always.
Cool. Well, hopefully this was helpful. If you guys enjoy the show, do us a huge favor, leave us a 5-star rating and a review. If you would like to apply for coaching with our team, hit the link in the show notes, and we will catch you guys next time.